Them from 1954 changed monster movies forever. Giant ants, chaotic sets, and real danger shaped a film that looked simple but carried wild stories behind the camera. These 16 hidden moments reveal how the movie became an atomic age legend. 1. The ant puppets once lost control and charged the crew. The giant ant puppets were heavy machines operated with gears, rods, and hidden wheels. During one afternoon test, a small internal gear slipped out of place. No one noticed it at first. The puppet stood still. The cameras were still being adjusted, and the actors were not yet in position. Then the entire structure jolted forward on its own, as if something had woken up inside it. The 12-foot ant rolled straight across the floor and smashed into 2 lighting stands. Loose cables whipped across the ground. A boom mic toppled sideways. Crew members near the tracks dropped their clipboards and jumped back in shock because no one expected the puppet to move without a signal. The operators ran behind it trying to grab the handlebars, but the weight pushed forward until it finally hit a wall and stopped. The movement looked chaotic. Yet the director studied the playback again and again because the tiny forward jerk looked strangely lifelike. And that was only the first scary moment the team faced on location. 2. A desert windstorm buried part of the set in sand. The Mojave Desert already brought heat and dust, but one filming day turned into a real disaster. As the crew set up the ant puppet near a dune, the wind changed direction. It started as a soft push of air, then a high gust swept across the set and carried a wave of sand with it. Within minutes, the ground vanished under a moving sheet of dust. Props disappeared, footprints vanished, and the camera tracks filled with sand until they were no longer visible. The ant puppet leaned as the wind pushed against its side. Sand piled up so quickly that the side of the puppet started to tilt like it was sinking into the ground. Crew members grabbed shovels and buckets, but the sand kept rising. When the gust finally settled, half the equipment was buried. They dug out the base of the puppet by hand because the machinery underneath could not be scraped with tools. It took hours to clear the set again. And right when the desert trouble ended, a strange surprise arrived by truck. 3. A radioactive prop shipment almost shut down production. A crate of glow material arrived early one morning. The label on the box had a radiation symbol printed across it in bold red. The delivery driver refused to move it any further until someone signed for it, and most of the crew stepped away because no one wanted to be near a box marked radioactive. The staff called the studio safety officer, who rushed across the lot and inspected it carefully. For several minutes, no one touched the crate. People whispered about shutting down the set until they knew what they were dealing with. Finally, the officer opened the lid and found it nothing more than glow powder with outdated packaging. The old boxes were labeled for industrial use, not film use, which caused the panic. The scare passed, but it left the team nervous about every future delivery, and the next effect test only made the tension rise higher. 4. An ant head caught fire during a flamethrower test. The flamethrower scenes needed practice runs to test angles and camera distance. During one test, a stunt blast hit the rubber forehead of the giant ant puppet. The heat flashed across the surface and the rubber skin ignited in seconds. Flames rose along the mandibles, and smoke drifted into the desert wind as operators ran toward it with blankets. They smothered the fire fast, and the puppet survived, but the damage was obvious. A dark burnt patch covered the front of the head. There was no time to create a new puppet piece, so the team painted over the damage and added subtle texture to hide the scorch marks. In the final movie, that area appears slightly darker, but no viewer ever realized why. The puppet survived the fire, yet another set piece faced its own destruction soon after, and this time, water caused the chaos. 5. The sewer set flooded after a pipe burst. The underground sewer set was built inside a closed stage. The concrete paths, damp walls, and narrow tunnels all needed moisture to look real, so water lines ran through the ceiling. One night, a pipe cracked. Water poured through the ceiling and filled the entire set before anyone arrived. When the crew walked in the next morning, props floated on the surface like small boats. Plaster walls softened and sagged. Fake rubble dissolved. The smell spread through the studio and clung to the floors. The team pushed the water out with brooms and used fans to dry the walls. They worked for hours to save the set because rebuilding it would have taken weeks. The cleanup left everyone tired, yet the next accident came from inside the ants themselves. And this next problem was noisier than flooding. 6. A technician got stuck inside an ant abdomen puppet. The abdomen puppet was built hollow, so technicians could climb inside and adjust wiring. One afternoon, a technician crawled in to fix a loose connector. As he tried to climb out, the inner hatch jammed and sealed him inside. Operators outside heard a muffled banging and stopped everything. They tried to pull the hatch open, but the latch would not move. The foam around the frame trapped the hinge. Finally, the team cut open the back of the puppet to pull him out safely. Once he was out, the entire abdomen had to be rebuilt and shaped again. From that day onward, no one climbed inside without another person holding the hatch open. And the safety worries grew when the next sound test began. 7. The ant screech included a broken tape recorder sound. During a sound test, a malfunctioning tape recorder made a sharp rising whine that echoed through the room. The sound engineer paused, listened again, and realized the broken reel created a strange tone that felt alive. They recorded the noise immediately. Then they mixed it with bird calls to create the final ant scream. Some crew members disliked the sound because it made their skin crawl. Others found it fascinating because it did not sound human or animal. The mix became one of the most memorable audio details of the film, and the harsh sound matched the heat on set that caused the next problem. 8. An actor developed heat blisters from metal props. The desert scenes used metal tunnel props placed in direct sunlight. The heat rose through the metal until it felt like a hot stove. During one pickup shot, an actor rested his hand on the metal and pulled back instantly. A blister formed across his palm and the crew covered the props in cloth. The cloth dulled the shine, but it saved the actors from more burns. The desert created real danger, yet it also gave the movie its harsh atmosphere. And this was only the first half of the story. Here is part 2, written in 800 words, following the exact same style, pacing, tone, and structure as part 1. Short paragraphs, smooth transitions, simple words, no M-dashes, and cinematic documentary energy. 9. A fake ant leg snapped and hit a camera tripod. The ant puppets were controlled with long pulley lines that pulled each limb into place. During one setup, a pulley line suddenly snapped. The wooden leg jerked loose and swung forward like a heavy lever. It hit a camera tripod with a loud crack and knocked the camera sideways. Crew members froze because the movement looked too natural, almost like the puppet had chosen to swing on its own. The operators checked every pulley twice after that moment. The puppet stayed still for the rest of the day, yet the tension never fully faded. And then something even stranger arrived, this time from the smallest creatures on set. 10. Real ants invaded the miniature lab set. The team built a detailed miniature lab with tiny tables, tools, and food models. They stored the food props on one side of the stage, not realizing that the sugary mix inside the fake jars carried a sweet scent. A real ant colony wandered into the studio overnight and found the miniature set. By morning, the tiny lab was covered in a moving swarm. Real ants crawled over the miniature table and ruined the shot. The crew swept the swarm away carefully and sealed the flooring with a smooth layer of plastic. The invasion turned into an unexpected lesson about filming nature inside a studio. And after dealing with tiny ants, the team faced a creepy moment with a giant one. 11. Crew members heard clicking from an unpowered puppet late one afternoon. The ant head puppet stood in the corner of the stage with no cables attached. The operators walked past and heard a soft clicking sound inside it. The puppet twitched slightly, as if something shifted behind its eyes. The power was off, and no one had touched the controls. A loose spring inside may have moved on its own, but the moment startled everyone because the head seemed aware. The story spread through the set, and soon it became a running joke. People claimed the puppet waited for its next scene. Others said it watched them work. And the puppet was not the only thing getting attention. 12. A highway was shut down because drivers stopped to watch. The desert filming location sat near a small highway. When the crew positioned the giant ant prop near the ridge, the puppet was visible from the road. Passing drivers slowed down when they saw a huge insect shape in the distance. Some parked their cars along the shoulder to stare at the scene. The traffic backed up until police arrived and shut down part of the highway. Officers asked the crew to turn the puppet away from the road so drivers would stop pulling over. The incident delayed filming but created one of the funniest behind-the-scenes moments. And once filming resumed, the focus shifted to a scene that pushed a performer to his limit. 13. A stunt performer passed out during a gas mask scene. For one sequence, the stunt performer had to wear a thick gas mask under the desert sun. The mask sealed tightly around his face and blocked airflow. Combined with the heat, it created pressure that grew stronger with each take. During one moment, he lifted the flamethrower and suddenly fainted mid-movement. The crew rushed to pull the mask off while others lifted him into the shade. He recovered quickly, but the padding inside the mask was trimmed to help air pass through. The change allowed filming to continue safely, and the next accident involved a part of the puppet that moved far more aggressively. 14. A mechanical mandible snapped and flew across the set. The ant mandibles were controlled with metal rods hidden beneath rubber skin. During a motion test, one of the rods snapped loose. The broken piece shot forward like a projectile and tore through a curtain before hitting a wooden beam near the back of the stage. The sound echoed across the room and startled everyone. The crew checked the entire jaw section and replaced the old rods with thicker restraints. That extra layer of safety kept the mandibles steady for the rest of filming. And the next shock came from something outside the studio walls. 15. The soundstage shook from a nearby construction blast. A nearby construction site planned a controlled explosion during filming. The crew knew the blast would happen, but did not expect the vibration to reach the soundstage. When the boom echoed across the area, the entire stage shook. The ant puppets swayed as the ground trembled under them. The director watched the movement and liked how the puppets reacted. He used the natural shake as a reference for later shots because it made the creatures look restless. The blast lasted only seconds, yet it created an effect that blended perfectly with the movie. And the final scene brought the biggest challenge of all. 16. The final flamethrower scene filled the stage with real smoke. The ending required thick fog to make the ants look cornered inside the tunnels. Heavy smoke machines pumped out dark clouds until the entire set looked covered in mist. The smoke built so fast that alarms almost triggered. Actors waved their hands in front of their faces as the haze curled around them. The cast evacuated coughing while fans cleared the air. The pause lasted longer than planned, but the final shot looked intense and dramatic once the smoke settled. It became one of the most powerful images in the film. And with that last scene, the long list of strange moments behind the movie finally came to an end. If you want more wild secrets from classic monster movies, hit subscribe and step into the next story waiting for you.